Right, good morning. Back to the AGA. It's come to the time I'm going to disconnect the oil, but I thought I'll show you in here where the oil burner lives. You've got a little door that lifts off. This is where you light the AGA. You only got to do it once until you decide you've got to service it. You can see the oil burners in the back. It's like a paraffin burner from the old greenhouse days. But what I'll do, I'll disconnect this elbow here. Then this plate slides out. There's not a lot of room, but he does come out okay. And that's what I do when I basically service it. We change wicks and clean the oil ways. There is that earlier video I did on servicing the oil AGA, which I'll link you in. If you can't see a link on the video, it's going to be in the comments. You can go from there. So I'm just going to pull that out. That's straightforward enough. Directly above the burner, this is where the hot plate was, the main heavy devil hot plate. There's a plate sitting over it. Now this plate will lift out, and the idea of that cutout, you can see it's a round plate with a pinch sliced off it. That's so it'll come out the hole there. There's a burner, a nice bit of insulation stuck on it. It's just fell down. But yeah, there's the burner. So the main hot plate is directly over the burner. Now you may recall I said about this used to heat hot water and burn 1,000 litres of oil extra a year. Well, that's where the boiler used to hang in over the hot plate. I filled that in a few years ago now. It used to stick out the back. Then the pipes went that way, exit left. But yeah, tremendous amount of fuel saving that was when I took that off. So yeah, we'll get the burner plate out. Then over this side, as I showed you before, this is where the control unit is for the oil control unit. It's a bit like the old SU carburetors. There's a float in here that'll raise and lower depending on the oil demand. So as the burners use oil, the float will drop down. More oil will come in this way, top this unit up. A little bit tricky to control in the sense of if you've got to adjust it. When I took the oil boiler out, or the boiler for the hot water out, it really upset this because there was less for the burner to heat up, if you like, because of the water mass was no longer there. But there are controls on this to tweak that. It took a week or so just to get it to the right level, but it's back to like a perfect setting, as I'd call it. But I'm going to disconnect this pipe here. That's the main supply end for the oil. The oil is turned off of the main tank, but there will be some oil in the pipe. So depending on how we go with that, I may have to. Well, I'm going to have a little bucket or something underneath to catch the oil. There's bound to be a little bit of runoff. Then I'm going to cap both the pipe and the oil inlet to this unit. And I'm also going to have to pull that off as well, along with the copper pipe that runs into the AGA here, because this side unit will have to be detached. As I say, I've never done it before, so it's going to be a bit of a learning curve. But the warming oven on the left hand side should come off as a one unit pretty much. As far as I know, it's not bolted on here. Weirdly, this was installed by professional AGA installers, but there's a bit of copper pipe jammed in here. That's certainly what it looks like. From one of the boxes with air boxes to the front panel here. On this side, a little bit further along, there's a bracket, which, yeah, I fully understand that. That's fine. Why you got a bit of copper pipe here? I don't know if that was a standard, less budget fit. I'm not too sure. But normally this would be a two oven AGA, and this side plate would have fitted in here across there. But the extension or add-on to put the extra two ovens on, they simply move the panel over to the left-hand side. This unit gets bolted in, and they bodge a bit of copper pipe in. Let me just give that. Yeah, there's a bit of copper pipe just jammed in there. So that's probably, if I push that now, you won't be able to see that on camera because the camera's moving, but there was a little bit of movement there. So I guess the idea of that, if you pushed against this, there'd be absolutely no movement because it's jammed up against that box. So yeah, this is what AGA fitted to my AGA. A little bit of copper pipe jammed in there. So that's going to have to go back. So yeah, I got a box of spanners. All of this is non-metric. It's Whitworth and all other sizes. So hopefully I'm going to find something that's going to fit. You've got the adjustable spanners, of course, but with something like this, that's probably seized up. You're better off with a real spanner rather than an adjustable spanner or some imperial socket. But I don't think you're even going to get that on there. But we'll cross that bridge and all that. So yeah, let's get the burner out. I'll get the spanners, show you how I'm going to do that. Then we'll move on to the oil supply. Now these are imperial as well, but I've normally got away with a 12mm and a 16mm spanner. 16mm on the nut. And I use the 12 just to hold the elbow. Now I've never done this up too tight, and I always use a bit of PTFE tape when I'm sealing it, and rarely does it leak when it's running. And just pop that off there to one side, and this burner unit, you lift it up gently, just pull them straight out. This pipe misses the elbow just about. As I say, it is a bit tight. You can't lift him up too high, otherwise the top of the burner unit gets caught. There you go. This debris isn't normally here, it's because I've gone in from the top of the oven. You lift that off. These are all your burner rings. I'm sure there's a better name, but that's what I call them. Be careful with these, don't bend them. You're going to have a problem getting hold of some more. I think I said there was 2 wicks from memory. Well, I said there was 3 wicks. There's 2 wicks. 1 wick, 2 wick. In here normally carbonizes with the poor quality of fuel we get nowadays. You can see there's a great build-up of carbon and other debris in there. So all that needs scraping out when I refit this. But as I say, that's all in the service video. It's all covered in there. Yeah, that's a nice empty box in there now. Oh, let me show you this. This standard fit AGA copper pipe here. I think if you look down there, there's a fairly good join. If I remove the pipe, that opens up. Now, apparently, when they make these cast iron plates and sides and tops, they can warp a little bit, and that's what looks to happen there. The whole plate is warped, so it's pulled in a little bit. You probably wouldn't have seen it on the 2-oven AGA because this plate would have pushed that out. But there's nothing really there in this position to push that plate out, apart from a bit of copper pipe that was fitted on install. So that's the reason for that to be there, to close that gap up. So right, we go on to the oil control unit on the left-hand side of the AGA now. Okay, let's see if we can get this unit off the side of the AGA and the oil pipe disconnected. You might have seen a cable here. Inside here, there's I believe it's 12-volt AC transformer. And what that's for is it puts the unit in what's called a low flame mode. If you have a power cut, the power's dropped off the transformer. There's no power fed into this control box, which sets it into low flame mode. Basically, it reduces the oil supply to the AGA. It doesn't stop the oil flow, it puts it into low flame mode, which is less of a burn, if you like. Then when the power is restored, it goes back to high flame and everything's returned to normal. Now, all that's happening on high flame when it's in normal mode and you've got 12 volts going to this power unit is heating a resistor or a bimetallic strip. let me show you. There's a bimetallic strip in here, and underneath there's a resistor. Basically, the resistor gets hot, warms the bimetallic or bimetal strip, and that alters the flow of oil from this control unit to the burner. Nothing more complicated than that, and it just runs. It's faultless. Never had a problem with that. What I did do, you might have seen an LED knocking around on here. I've just put that across the 12-volt supply with a resistor, and that comes on when the thermostat in the AGA thinks it needs to drop more oil. So it does drop up and down between high and low flame automatically, but the main thing I wanted to put across, when you have a power cut, it goes to low flame for safety reasons, I guess. This is the oil turn off. If I was servicing this unit, I'd push that into the upper position, which it is at the moment. Normally, it goes in the down position, but to turn the oil supply off totally from here to the burner, that is put into the upper position. But now I'm going to disconnect the oil pipe. It looks as if 17 and 19 mil spans is what I need on this unit here. There's a container underneath to catch any residual oil, and I've got a couple of rubber caps to push over the pipe that probably won't fit when I'm trying to stop the flow of oil out of the pipe, but it is turned off in the main tank. So without trying to block your view, I'm going to get the spanners in. And I've never undone this. This is from the main install, so hopefully everything goes okay. It is undoing okay, and there's not loads of oil flowing out, so that's all good. But I am expecting some. The oil tank's about 2 meters higher than this pipe, so there's bound to be some residual oil. You can see that dripping out now. Not bad though. That's sort of what I wanted to see. And maybe one of these little rubber caps will fit over. And it does. Look at that. I don't know about in here. You want to keep this clean. Blimey, that actually fitted. So just move the camera so you can see. So main oil supply here, disconnected, oil in, got a cap on it, that's got a cap on it, so we're all nice and safe there now. As this whole unit's got to come off, there is another pipe here, which is a feed to the burner. So that'll have to come out. And there is oil in here, so I'm going to lose a quarter of a pint of oil out of here when I undo that. I don't think there's any way around that. So yeah, it's one of them things. So we'll do that. I might as well just crack on with that. That's easy enough. You're going to understand that and do that nut there. Going into the AGA, there are a number of connectors or supplies. The white cable from the burner unit is the input from the thermostat that's in the AGA. I can show you that. That's where the main burner unit was. There's a control knob there. That alters the so-called temperature of the AGA. It does have an effect, not a mega effect. So you've got the cable going in. You've got the oil supply on an 8mm pipe going in. You've also got I believe they call it a capillary pipe. That goes in around about where the burner unit is. And the idea of that, if you have a fire in the burner unit, uncontrollable fire, gets too hot, it'll trip this unit here. I'm not sure what they call it. I could probably find out, put it in the comments. But it'll trip this unit, which cuts off the supply to the burner. Idea is, if you have a fire, you don't want the AGA in a runaway condition with gallons of oil pouring into the fire. That wouldn't be good. That's spoily day. But if it overheats, it'll turn this valve off. It is resettable, I believe, on this one. I'm just looking now. There's normally looks as if there's a tab here. If it did get tripped, you put the fire out, you have a cup of tea, let it cool down, reset that button just at the back, and you're back to normal then. Let's take you around the front. Keep going on about the thermostat. And also that it's a bowl full of liquid. I'm not sure what liquid it is. But sorry, dodgy camera there, just falling on the floor. There's the thermostat, cables there, going into a pipe that exits left to what we just saw. And this is the bulb. There's a little capillary tube that's full of liquid that goes off to the unit I just showed you that trips the oil should there be a fire. So if there's a fire in this unit here, this would overheat and cut off the oil supply. So yeah, I'll go back to the oil inlet now. We'll disconnect that totally and go on from there. I wasn't going to show you me making a mess, but I will now. Disconnecting this pipe, I've got a 15mm spanner. That seems to fit reasonably well. But I'm sure we are going to get some oil coming out of this, because this tank, yeah, there's some running down there now, is probably got some residual oil in there. Although normally when I turn the AGA off, I'll switch it off with this valve and let the burner run dry. So I'm not sure if it does take it from here or not. We're about to find out. Depends on how they switch it off here. Oh, okay. It looks if you let the burner run dry when you're servicing it, it empties this tank. So that's something learned now. I ain't got half a pint of oil flooding out, which is good. So I'll find a cap for these two. This unit can come off. There's a couple of big posi drive screws on the side here that you can see possibly. So then a whole burner unit will come off. You've got to be extremely careful, stroke accurate fitting this, because the oil level's got to be the same level as the burner in the unit. So you don't just want to stick this up on a wall somewhere or lower down, because that's going to affect the runnability, so to speak, of the AGA. It is quite precise. You can move this unit apparently 1 meter away from the AGA, and the plan is, because we haven't cupboards in this area where I'm waving my hand, I don't want this on the side because you wouldn't be able to open the cupboard doors. So I'm going to relocate this to the back wall where I'm pointing. So I'm going to have to extend this oil pipe, which is fine. I'll put a brand new pipe in. It's an 8mm copper pipe, like I said. So I should be able to secure this to the wall, but mounting it on the wall is going to be a critical height. So I need to bear that in mind. So probably before I remove this from here, I'm going to do some accurate measurements so I can at least have a reasonable day when I reinstall it. But yeah, I'm going to take this off. There's nothing else for you to see here. Take this off the wall or off the side of the AGA. Then we've really got to thread or unthread this oil pipe and the cable from this warming oven side, this warming oven, because that's the next thing I'm going to take out. So we'll see how we get on with that now. I just had a bit of a thought. I'm going to leave this on the side of the warming oven. So that's one less thing for me to have to fiddle with and adjust and get right when I reinstall the AGA. Then when the kitchen gets fitted, I'll move it to there. But at least I can put the AGA back together and make sure he's all okay before I relocate that. Don't want to put more issues in front of me than I have to. Now, as this is a thermostat I showed you earlier, what I'm going to do is I've disconnected the cables. They run down a little pipe down here. This is the bulb that cuts out the oil. That's on a plate that had 2 screws. And if I had a torch, I could show you down there. There's a pipe, which is the other end of a big grommet. That pipe runs all the way along here and finishes here, where this and that bulb actually go exit left. So I'm going to remove that plate here, unhook the bulb, then delicately, as much as I can, thread these units back that way. Now, as I said before, there's a very thin copper pipe there. It might be it's not going to make it and it's going to break, in which case I'll need to get a new one of these units, which is no biggie. It's probably, I'm hoping, like £20, but if I don't have to spend the money, that's great. But I'm not super hopeful, but I'll give it a bit of thread out and you'll see the end results in a few minutes. Oh, there you go, made it. Down here, there's a couple of pipes. That end of the pipe is from there, and further down there's a bigger diameter, probably 20 mm diameter. That's where the bulb, which is there, successfully removed, I like to say, and the pipe live. So it's a fairly big hole for it all fit into. It would have to be, really. You see the size of that. But the oil feed pipe looks like it goes under the AGA and not through the cabinet, the warming oven. So I might get away without fiddling with that for now. But what I got to do now, I'm afraid, is fish out the insulation that's down the side here, because this warming oven won't move with these bars coming up, because they link to that black base I showed you earlier. So I'm probably going to have to fish out all the insulation. There's two screws at the back, one there, one a little bit further back. They're the only screws that hold this whole cabinet together. So I think it's generally relying on the weight to stop it moving. So we fish out that insulation, and I'm hoping that cabinet I can move up. Whether I've got to lift it over those bars is something to find out, but I suspect I have. But it's fairly hollow. The main thing in the middle is cast iron. Sorry, the main thing at the front is cast iron. The rest looks like aluminium. So probably that side panel will come off. Maybe the back panel in one go, so less weight. But learning curve. Here we go. I've undone the two screws that are at the back. There was fixing the green part to the white part. That's technical term there. And now there is some movement. Don't know if you can see that on the camera. This side unit appears to be loose. I'm told that it's just those two screws the whole thing together. But I've noticed down excuse me, that's a rock wool getting me throat. This rusty plate there, the half moon shape, that's got the rope around it, that feels fairly loose and separate from this unit and that unit. I thought it might be an air box that allows heat from here into the warming oven, but looking down here, it doesn't seem to be. So I think I've got to remove that. I just wanted to get that on camera from my own perspective and history, if you like, and to show you. But if I move that, see how it's moving. So I suspect if I pull a rope out, it's like an insulating rope around it, which is covered with vermiculite. So if it leaked a little bit, it's the gases or the hot air is not really going anywhere. So I don't know if that's conduction from here to there into the hot box. We'll find out in a few minutes. But yeah, I'm going to go lifting this plate out. I'll try to get it on camera. If not, this will be missing in a minute. I've took this high insulation rope out, for want of a better word. This is the sort of thing that go around your log burner doors. But it's all in one piece, so I can reuse that. And basically, all that did was wrap around here, underneath, come up back the other side, and likewise along here. The thicker one was on the right hand side. Now this plate or baffle is loose, but I can't remove it yet because the warming oven is sort of located inside this, and there's not enough wiggle room to lift that out yet. So when I lift the warming oven away, I'll have to be careful that doesn't fall or drop. It's resting, by the looks of it, or certainly the feel of it, on this unit. So once the warming oven's away, it's going to give us a bit more idea what's going on. And that's what I'm going to do now. Now, it looks if the warming oven really is only attached by the two screws here, and it's just the weight that holds it down, because I managed to pull this sideways slightly. This unit still won't come out. It's quartz, so I need to go further with the warming oven. So probably off camera, a couple of us are going to manhandle this unit away from the main AGA. So everything's disconnected, with the exception of the copper oil feed pipe, which is underneath this unit. So hopefully we can lift it over that pipe. But you can see it's here, it's moved over a couple of inches, so things are on the move there. What I've been meaning to say as well, where the metal pieces join, where there could be a slight gap, they've been putting rock wool down the joins over here as well. That's probably so little bits of dust from the vermiculite don't escape. This is like acting as a plug. But right, let's get this heavy unit shifted. Right, well that one horrendous. As I say, them two screws and a little helper managed to move this over here. Added on a bit of card and just slid it across the floor. There's the entrance to the warming oven. Rock wool insulation, like I said, to fill the gap. Only one issue that I didn't film. There's this pipe there. That's the pipe that exited to the left. And in that, you had the thermostat bulb going through and the cable. Now, I couldn't move the whole box forward because this pipe was being trapped. And I couldn't move it left because of other pipe work. So I just, because the gap opened up here, I could wiggle the pipe and push it into the remaining part of the oven. Then the whole box came forward. So that worked out quite well. This is this plate I was on about. That'll just lift away there. I'm going to investigate how the heat actually gets through it, but it looks like conduction or convection. There's no direct hole in the oven that lets heat through into the warming oven. So it is just like a hot box. A bit of right angle steel here. That's where the boiler was at the back. So I'm going to get the vacuum out, have a bit of a clear up in the kitchen, have a cup of tea. Then I think we'll start moving this. That's the main hob over the burner. But what I'm going to do first, get a spirit level on these two units, because depending on how level they are, depends on how good the hobs sit. So I'm going to check how good they are at the moment. So I'll put the kettle on, have a clean up, and I'll bring you back. Right, okay, ready to go again. What I want to do is remove this unit now. That's the bit that sits directly over the burner. There seems to be some more of that high temperature rope running around there. I suspect that's just for insulation more than anything else. You can see I can move it. So they've wrapped that around the base. And I notice here, I don't know if I can get this on camera, just down there on the equivalent oval section, there's a big thick bit of insulation. So when we remove this, we'll be able to have a look. By the looks of it, the only thing that's supporting this or holding it together is two bolts. Now, 3/4 of an inch or 19mm spanners seem to fit. So I'm going to try to get these two bolts undone. This whole unit also seems to be supported by these arms that come out. There's an arm on either side. They actually support the chamber. So it may not actually be touching under there. I'll have a look before we start digging it away or taking it out. I'll pull that rope away and see if there's a gap or not, just so I know. I want to do the minimum reset when I put this back together. I don't want to alter any how the nuts and bolts are set at the minute. I really want to do the minimum work, if you like. I don't have to do a total rebuild and level everything up. Hopefully it'll just slot back together. But I'll put a spirit level on here, and that's how you doing. It looks like it's been on a boat and they put a spirit level on it. That's horrible. This one, pretty good. So do I realign this correctly, horizontally and vertically, etc.? If so, it might be that the lump of cast iron that sits in there, the burner plate, the hot plate, isn't then going to be level. So that's a conundrum I'm going to come across a little bit later. But anyhow, let's get these bolts out. I'll say everything's imperial on here. 3/4 inch 90mm seem to work. This one here has come loose. I don't know if you can see, got the head of the bolt in there. Very little room to get much on there other than your fingers, which isn't going to hold it when you're going to crack the nut off. But I could, two ways I could get it out. Put a pair of mole grips on the thread. That thread is going to get damaged, but it doesn't matter. It's only this end that matters. Or cut the bolt off, then put new bolts in. But this one's cracked off okay here, thanks to the plus gas. So hopefully in a moment the one at the back will, and I can lift this out the way and we can see what's going on underneath. I'll pull back the rope and it's just floating in free air. The burner unit is directly the end of my fingers down here. So this rope is purely insulation to stop the hot air and the gases getting into the vermiculite. So that's very important. That goes back well. So yeah, let's crack off them bolts, pull this chamber out. Well, that's good. We've got the bolts out. Well, we'll need to renew. There's a gasket running along here because the hot air comes out of here, goes over to the other hot plate. So that's a definite need a new one. One thing I have noticed, basically this unit is supported by these arms. There's one each side. That looks okay. Basically, you've got a square nut under here, and you can adjust that to alter the height and the pitch, etc. Not sure what's going on with the bolt over this side. Looks as if that arm's too far over and the bolt's cocked in. Whether that was done from install or whether the back of this has actually gone down and pulled the bolt over, not sure. But given the fact this is all over the place, I'm going to have to rejig this for level. So I'll see if I can rework that. It might be those arms are adjustable and I can bring him in a little bit. And if I can pull him in, that bolt will straighten up. But next thing is lift this off. I'll go and get a helper and we lift it away. Right, that's lifted out okay. You can see the high temperature rope there that just coils around the base. So what I'll do very similar. Put it around there, then we can drop the chamber back. These aren't captive bolts. They just rest in a little hole in the arm. And that's that square nut I was on about. That gets adjusted to alter the position of the burner unit. So that'll do your left and right, if you like, north to south, east to west. I would imagine there's a little bit of wiggle room here where the bolts go through. So, you know, you've got a little bit of play there. So I think I will level that up. Interestingly, the right hand hot plate was about 5mm lower than the one on the right. Sorry, the one on the left. The right one, 5mm lower than the one on the right. But that could literally be the makeup of the hot plates itself. So I'm not going to worry too much about that. But yeah, another vacuum, I think. Need a new gasket for this. It wasn't just the paste, the fire paste you can put in, fire cement. It was actually a real gasket, so to speak. So definitely need one of them. This plate appears to be, in my case, just a blanking plate. If you look at the chamber, there's a letter box in the bottom. One at the top goes to the hot plate. One on the bottom is just blanked off. So technically I could put a steel plate on that, but I don't think I will. I'll rely on the fire rope there. I'll get some new fire rope and put that in with some fire cement when it all goes back to together. So yeah, vacuum and another cup of tea. There's a bit of dust kicking off of this. Yeah, okay. Chimney's probably the next thing. Take this bracket off. I'll get the chimney out the way. That's still sitting there. So pull the chimney down, pull the plate off at the back, and work out what else we've got to take off next. I'm just looking at what's next to be done. I think I'm going to remove the chimney. At the base of it, around there's a bit of fire rope, so I'm going to dig that out. Then with a little bit of wiggling, I'll be able to lift the chimney out, so we're totally clear then. This section, I'm going to see if I can detach that. It is connected to the front plate here. Excuse me. There's a few bolts down there that attach it to the front panel. but there's some I can't really get to this underneath. So it depends on where I'm going to split it. I might be able to split it here, and there's another bolt down the other side. There is another fire rope running around there, so that's going to be a gasket issue. But that would, by the looks of it, time will tell. Um, this unit will be removed with the front panel. As I say, I can't get to some of the bolts underneath. The same thing applies here. There's some long bolts running through back to front that go to this front assembly, and another one here that links the front panel. And appears to be one more here. So I can loosen that. I can loosen those bolts. Not too sure what's going on down here. There's some more insulation I've not removed, but I suspect this panel is also connected to this unit in some way. We'll find out. One more rod from here runs all the way to the base, so that'll definitely have to come undone. And hopefully I won't have to remove the manifold. That may come out in one lump. If not, there's a couple of bolts there, then this back will detach. But like I say, if I don't have to take that out or unscrew it, I won't have to get a new manifold for it. But I'll dig out the chimney. I'll have another little look what's going on down here, see what I can do. One thing you may have seen is this. That runs down to the thermostat. It's a similar sort of principle to electric cooker. As thing gets hot, the thermostat will alter at different temperatures. I don't know if you'd be able to hear a click. No. Okay. Normally when it's running, you'll hear a click on that, so you know where the setting is. But basically, that's another one of them capillary tubes, very thin copper tube with liquid running into it, and it looks as if it's seen better days. Comes up this tube, runs across, and the bulb is in here. Gee, how long is it? Right. So that may live for another day. I'm going to see how much they are because I don't really want to open it all back up again should the need arise. But it is working, so if I don't damage it, we might be okay on that one. But I thought I'd just show you that. So yeah, I'm going to work out what nuts and bolts I need to take out. Once I have, I'll come back to you. But chimney first. It was interesting. I couldn't get the chimney, as you can see, the black vitreous enamel chimney, out of the cast iron base there. It really is gummed in with fire cement. So two bolts, and they were quite loose. I don't know if they call it a manifold, but basically the manifold that came out of here that went up the chimney, two bolts and it was out. So that's fine. There's the hole where the chimney goes up to the outside. That's all off. Now I've had a little bit of a look what needs to be done now. This top oven, the main roasting oven, is just sitting on the lower oven on screws, bolts if you like. Don't know if we can see here. There, you can just see there's one there. There's four of them in all. They're adjusters so you can level the oven. It feels as if they go into the baking oven, the oven below. Actually, in here, I can feel there's four adjusters that go up here, the ones we've just seen. So that's how they level the oven on installation. Now, hopefully, I'm not going to alter them, and it'll all go back nice and square. So the next thing now, lift the top roasting oven off. What I can find is one long rod that goes right down to the bottom. So there's one nut there, one nut going across that clamps the main oven, the roasting oven, to the front plate. I'm kicking bits about here, sorry for the noise. It looks like a tie bar going over here to the main front plate. And one more there. And that looks like it. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4 to lift away or undo, and that should just pull up. So I'll undo those and see if we can get it loose. And if we can, I'll lift that away with a helper and I can show you what happens, or happened. Tell you where I am with this top oven, the roasting oven. I still want to remove it. I want to lift it straight up, which is fine. I've undone the clamp there, clamp on the other side, but because I want to lift it straight up and these bars are in keyways, I'm going to have to pull the threaded bar out there. Also going to have to unscrew the threaded bar there from the front, which is fine. But this, what I thought was a tie bar along the top, it may still act as a tie bar, but it's got the thermometer in there. This is the normal thermometer you'd see. But to get that out, because obviously I've got to lift the oven up, well, this bar is going to hold the oven in. So if I get my torch to remove the thermometer, there's two very, very small bolts with nuts on it. If I undo those two nuts, this whole assembly should come out along with that tube. That's just, as I say, I thought it was a clamp plate, but it won't lift off. It's actually a hole in there. It's not a slot. So undo those two bolts. This will slip out. I'll undo the other couple, pull out the threaded bar. Then I should be able to lift this totally up on its own. There's probably other ways of doing it, but that's the way I want to do it this time. When I'm reassembling, it might be a different story, but I'll get this undone. Hopefully they won't snap off. If they do, then I'm in for a new thermometer, but get the nuts out, that'll pull forward and away we go. And so I'll continue. I need to pop the socket off there so I can get my fingers on there, but I'm going to block a shot. This bolt's a little bit too long to fit right through here, so I'll get a pair of pliers to start it, then I can use the socket, but I'll do that off camera. Right, got that part out. Very heavy. That's the heaviest part so far. You definitely need two people or like an engine lift to get that out of crane. But that's out. If you go back over here, you've got a big plate there that sits underneath that unit. And these are the little pips I was talking about. I said there was four. There's actually only three. So they level the base. This, I'm not too sure if there's an adjustment on that at all, but that sits between the two ovens. So I'll find out about that when I put it back. But I have marked it in that circular cut out there, so I can get that back exactly where it was anyhow, so it should be okay. I think the plan now is to detach the front, the big front of the AGA. I'm going to see if I can get that off in one piece and make easier access to the two parts that are left. And looking at it, I've got one bolt there, one on the opposite side down there. If I undo those two, I think I'm going to be able to lift this front plate off with that, which is the inside of the control box there. This plate is like a baffle or a joiner between the back oven and the front of the AGA. Likewise at the top. There it is for the top oven. So yeah, I'm going to give it a go just with those two bolts there and there and see if I can lift that carefully away. There's nothing holding this down, it's pure weight. It will lift up. If you get on one end of the side there, it'll lift up from the base. So hopefully with those two bolts, a little bit of careful manoeuvring, I can take the front off. So that's what I'm about to do. Well, I've lifted that unit out, like I said, managed to get the two bolts undone. There was one in here, it's on the floor somewhere, I could show you, and there's another one that side. Loosen that off and I managed to pull the thing sideways. Then there's just one more bolt down here. If we put a light on, don't know if you can see that, there's a threaded bar. So get the light in a better position. Down there, out of focus. Got that undone. And one more down there. Turn the camera around. Sitting there. So in theory, that front plate should lift off now. Let's see if I get the camera over here, you can actually see some work in action. Right, let's position that so you can see. There you go. Now if I'm right, that should lift off in one go. Still seems a little bit attached in some way. Yeah, it's the second oven at the back. We'll take you round. This oven here is catching on that bolt down there, which is making it a little bit awkward to remove the front plate. If I undid the stud there, the threaded bar, I think the front plate would come off okay. But what I'll do, I'll go and get some help, and we'll have a little wiggle with that, and I think we can still get the front away without messing with this oven just yet. Then we can come back and lift that oven off. Alright, with some help we managed to lift the last bits away. Right old dirty old wall, I haven't seen the light of day for 25 years. There's the base, cast iron base. The concrete base, this is what it was all about. I've got to add about 30 mil to the front, add a piece down there, and chop a bit off on the right hand side. But here's a pile of bits in the kitchen, which would be great to hoover around. One thing I didn't show you, where the main roasting oven and the baking oven sit on top of one another. If we look at this, this is the baking oven. The roasting oven's here. Between the two, there's a pipe. You can get to it from the top oven, and that pipe just sits like that. Then the roasting oven sits over that, and the pipe is trapped, if you like, between the two ovens. Not entirely sure of the use. It could well be that fumes come out of this into the other oven, then away. Not sure. I'll find out. Somebody probably put it in the comments what it's all about. But that stops you wiggling the top oven around. It was catching on this pipe. I forgot to remove it. You can remove it before you move the two ovens. And you also want to remember to put it back before you put it all back together. So yeah, that just goes there. I didn't show you that on video. But here's all the bits and pieces. This is probably two parts. This is probably the second part of the video you've seen already. Because the first video ran on a little bit, so this is the second part of the dismantling. If you stick with it, there will be a part 3 and even possibly a part 4, putting this all back together. But that's it for now. Keep a lookout for the reassembly of the oil auger. Anyway, thanks for watching.